example of being the world champion of Hearthstone.
Yeah, no more messing about. Let's get this next match underway. First player going to be taken to the stage for this winners match. From Korea, it's going to be Fr0zen.
One of APAC's very best and the favorite player of a man stood very close to me, Mr. Raven.
Oh yeah.
Fr0zen is looking to take it home.
And his opponent, probably one of the most confident players coming into this tournament. Give it up for Fr0zen.
Speaking of creative lineups, Fr0zen looking to follow in the footsteps of Sintolo and bring that control mage out of groups.
Let's do this! Surrender versus Fr0zen!
Surrender has the most standard lineup in the tournament. He has very anti-aggro tech cards in his Rogue and his Druid, which makes his lineup even weaker than mine statistically.
약간 안티 어그로 전략에 가져와서
Fr0zen's deck lineup is favorable to mine, as he brings anti-aggro.
He has the exact lineup that I target.
Also, he is known for playing well, so I was hoping not to meet him in the winner's bracket.
I'm very favored, close to 60% versus Surrender.
Surrender versus Fr0zen! Ready, set, go!
It's been a marathon of a day here for the second day of competition for the Hearthstone World Championship, and now we have our final match of the day, Surrender versus Fr0zen, and one more spot guaranteed, at least in the winner's bracket of each of the groups for the quarterfinals. My name is Fr0zen, I'm joined by Brian Kibler. Our last match promised to be pretty cool. I think we got Fr0zen with a very unique lineup and Surrender with the tried and true proven lineup of the top 4 classes and decks.
Was that kind of cool, a Fr0zen pun?
It could be. It's whatever you want it to be, Kibler.
Whatever, man. I'll just let that go.
You know, the ban shouldn't surprise anyone on Surrender's side. He got his Cube Warlock banned away. That's been a pretty strong deck. But the Mage has been banned from Fr0zen not once but twice. His previous opponent, Nerea, also did the same thing. Because that Mage deck is also very fearsome.
Yeah, we saw that get banned earlier. I'm kind of sad we won't get to see it played because I do think the deck is kind of a work of art. But it does allow Fr0zen to play both of the decks that are sort of most feared by the general populace of the tournament coming in, which is Priest and Warlock. And Fr0zen's Druid, which will be starting this game, has some spice to it as well. He's playing a Violet Teacher package in his Druid deck, which in my experience makes it much stronger, specifically against a lot of the aggressive decks.
Yeah, and I think the Control Mage being banned also opens up one of the more powerful decks in the format. We get to see Warlock be played and put on display why exactly it is so strong. Sometimes in these tournaments, what ends up happening is because these surprise lineups come up, you don't actually get to ban what you normally want to ban, and then you get to see Warlock be displayed at its full power. And I think that's always cool because when you ban it, you don't get to see it very often. And it's kind of disappointing.
Speaking of something you don't see very often, which is Jade Idol not played on turn 1 here by Fr0zen. This does give him the opportunity to potentially pair that Jade Idol with a Violet Teacher to get 2 1/1s off of the single card. He actually has the opportunity next turn, as we see a Glimmerroot show a Jade Idol as well. Fr0zen does have the opportunity to coin Oaken Summons if he wants this turn. Or rather, no, he doesn't even have to coin. What am I saying? He can Oaken Summons this turn and has coin or Innervate to pair with Jade Idol. He's got 2 of the 3 options. No, he does not have Violet Teacher. This is the only non-Violet Teacher card in his deck that costs less than 4, or minion at least in his deck that costs less than 4. So he was hoping, I think, to potentially hit the Violet Teacher and go widen his board with the coin into Jade Idol there.
Surrender picks up Raz the Chain, and that is a 2-card combo with Shadow Reaper Anduin. And Fr0zen does have a mixture of aggressive builds with some of the defensive armor gain that he really needs in his deck. Still has the branching pass into Oaken Summons with Malfurion. So I like with that he has almost every tool available to win the matchup. But when Priest has both Raza and Shadow Reaper Anduin,
it's still tough. It's
still tough because you have the ideal hands on both sides. You have Malfurion's Death Knight, and then you have Shadow Reaper Anduin. So who's favored in that position? They both end up drawing very well.
It really depends on the rest of how the cards line up, because yes, Raza Anduin is extremely powerful, but if Surrender does not find enough card draw to keep the damage flowing, essentially, he can run out of resources where Fr0zen is able to armor up, especially with Malfurion and Ultimate Infestation in his hand available. This Aya here too is pretty powerful. Surrender does have access to the Shadow of Death to clear it off if he wants to here, but that does mean he would skip the turn playing Raza. And if he does just play the Raza here, there's the trade with the Aya onto Raza from Fr0zen's side, which allows him to take out the body effectively, but Surrender decides, okay, I just want to get this down immediately.
Yeah, it's still important to establish Raza just for getting the mana efficiency out of the way. And that Aya is not going anywhere anytime soon, and you definitely don't necessarily want to waste your Shadow of Death on that. Fr0zen not in any rush to get the Death Knight out just yet. Instead, just playing on the curve.
At this point, the Innervate can allow him to just jump curve to the Ultimate Infestation if he wants to. Though we could even see a Nourish for mana to open up Infestation just the next turn as well. One of the interesting things that Innervate does is allow him to potentially just play Innervate Jada after an Infestation in the same turn as well.
It's true. Running into hand size issues often is the case. And plus, the Innervate has great synergy with the Violet Teachers, as you've been mentioning. Back over in Surrender's camp, though, he's kind of been stalled by a little bit of the awkwardness in the mid game. It's actually exactly what you're mentioning. The fact that Surrender has great pieces, but will kind of be struggling to put together actual plans pre and post Anduin.
Yeah, he did just pick up Shadow Visions, which can give him some flexibility. I think he's likely to save it to get multiple spells to trigger the Anduin ability, so he can just kind of fire that off once he has already gotten the hero power online. Fr0zen picks up another Oaken Summons. This one is guaranteed to hit Violet Teacher, so if you wanted to get that going, but Malfurion, very, very powerful to get online quickly, because it does allow him to have the dynamic of being able to armor up away from the burst damage that Surrender's deck is capable of.
This is starting to be a lot of pressure too. You know, the fact that Fr0zen can threaten Mark of the Lotus, even just branching path damage. You know, it's not that you would, but it's the idea that if J.Drew can be in a position to be aggressive in this matchup, sometimes they'll take it.
Well, that's a big part of what makes I think the Violet Teacher build of Jade Druid so powerful that Fr0zen is playing, is the threat of branching paths on any board that goes wide. You force your opponent to deal with your board as if you just have Savage Roar in your deck.
Right.
And you also can use the flexibility of the branching paths to keep you out of range of the burst damage from the Raza Anduin combo. So it just attacks from so many different directions. That's what makes it so powerful.
The versatility of Druid is what often keeps it relevant through almost every metagame. Actually, I can't even imagine a metagame that Druid was ever bad. Primarily because Innervate's been good for so long, and the only reason why it wasn't is because the direct nerf when it was extremely impressive. Now, Surrender picks up a mid-sized potion here, looking primarily for draw cards and just things of substance, so that way he can actually keep up the Shadow Reaper Anduin.
Summon 2 friendly minions and deal 5 damage. It's an okay potion, not really necessarily what he is looking for most of the time. He does want that card draw, though he has all the pieces, is the thing. He has Anduin, he has the Raza, so he's not trying to assemble the pieces of the combo. He's more just trying to get fuel to keep firing off once that gets going.
This Wild Growth kind of leads directly into the Ultimate Infestation play. Fr0zen playing it and sequencing it so the Violet Teacher does not summon the token. Very deliberate play here. What's he trying to go for?
I think this may be an attempt to potentially play around a Spirit Lash or a Psychic Scream, because you don't want to get a small minion shuffled into your deck. It is a very interesting choice that he did at this quarter, though.
It's true. Kind of implying doesn't want pressure, but I mean, when you Wild Growth on turn 8 or on 8 mana, it's a pretty strong indicator of what's going to happen on the following turn anyway. So I think Fr0zen says, yeah, I want to make sure to hedge, and I'm not. If he does Psychic Scream, I'm not going to use an Ultimate Infestation draw to pick up an Apprentice token. Feels like a waste at that point.
Surrender does know, okay, well, Infestation's coming next turn. He some ways would love to get Anduin online as soon as possible, but he does really see the infestation coming, so there's definitely the consideration of holding on to it, but no, it is going to be Anduin right now, and Surrender does have a fistful of a lot of cheap spells, but Fr0zen is at 48, so he's got a lot that he's got to work through.
I do want to point out over our partners at hsreplay.net, who's helped us so much with the broadcast, they pointed out that important breaking point for this matchup is 20 armor. That's when the matchup, that's pretty much the optimal amount of matchup percentage you can without going absurd rates like 50 armor. That's usually the breaking point in which Priest can't break through at that point. And it's about 70%. It's crazy amount of damage that you need as Priest. But that doesn't stop yesterday, for example, where we saw Kalento drop, even though he was up at so much health.
Yeah, Samuel Sao, I believe, dealt 46 in one turn to kill Kalento, who had spent the game armoring up. But now Fr0zen, he is at 51. And one key card to dealing that much damage is Prophet Valen. Surrender does not have it, and he does not have card draw.
Also, he can't deal with this board immediately.
Right?
This Shadow Visions needs to dig
There's
deep.
Psychic Scream.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what he's looking for. Yeah, before he was, pretty worried about the state of the board, might be even dying.
And this is one of the awkward things with a deck that does end up going wide like this. Fr0zen, we see a shake of the head. And now there is the chance that he will just draw some of those awful cards that were shuffled into his deck. Yeah, he just drew a Plague Scarab. But now, okay, well, you had to go dig for a Psychic Scream. You clearly didn't have it. I'm going to go wide again. I'm going to spread out my board and make a bunch more threats you're going to have to deal with.
And Fr0zen does want to get this armor up in the way, or online. You want to hero power every single turn possible.
We see him innervate out the Scarab.
Yeah, and here's something that's actually problematic too, is the fact that Fr0zen saw that was off the Shadow Vision. So it is possible that another Psychic Dream shows up, and yet more stuff and junk gets shuffled into his deck.
Well, Pyromancer is interesting because Pyromancer gives Surrender a way to clear off a lot of the junk on this board, which would be threatening if Fr0zen were to pick up Mark of the Lotus or Branching Paths. So it does significantly impede Fr0zen's ability to push for damage. He has those two nourishes, so a lot of ability to dig deeper into his deck to find higher impact cards that could help push this damage. On the other hand, though, Surrender can't really use his resources too heavily interacting with Fr0zen's board, or he runs the risk of just not having enough damage to push to actually finish Fr0zen off. So he really needs to figure out the best way to use his resources here to keep the aggression going while answering Fr0zen's offense.
Bush Madness play seems to optimize that board clearance in every capacity possible. Seems like instead he's going to try to opt to go for this Kazakus potion. And a couple of Death Rattle minions also have draw a card. I believe it is the Loot Hoarder and the Blood Mage Thanos. Does not get either. This is still a sizable board. However, it's going to meet the swipe wrath of Fr0zen.
Yeah, Fr0zen does have a lot of removal effects in his hand. That's actually what he is kind of glutted with at this point, when he'd much rather have ways to pressure. So they will come in handy right here. It's interesting. That's just still the Jade Idol.
Yeah, they had since turn 1. Well, he had it in his opening hand, but he had the opportunity to play in turn 1.
He's just had that Jade Idol in his hand the entire game and has yet to play it. He could have played it on turn 1. It's just a very odd situation that you never fit that in with 1 mana somewhere. But I think this turn might be where we see it happen.
I mean, it has implications too. Maybe that Jade Idol or the Jade Golem would have survived the previous turn too. It would have been a slightly stronger Jade at that point. And Fr0zen opts to draw instead.
The double Mark of the Lotus is definitely what Fr0zen would have loved to have had that board up in order to preserve.
Yeah. Fr0zen going to clear the board, realizing that the bigger priority is making sure that no minion damage can get through. And again, he's at that breaking point where, he has a serious amount of armor to the point where the opponent can't kill him in 1 turn. And Surrender just used the Kazakus potion. Part of that extended burst is getting a 1-mana potion to deal effectively Pyro Bombs.
And I'm trying to think of exactly what Fr0zen's plan is with this Jade Idol. I think he may be looking to strand removal effects in Surrender's hand so he can't use them effectively on just individual minions and force him to deal with a really, really large board all at once.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It could be that point where he's making a 5/5 Jade, and I think he wants to play multiple Jades at the same time.
Right. If he had just played Jade Idol last year, he'd made a 5/5. Surrender could just Shadow or Death that 5/5. So instead, he's like, okay, I'm going to spread out and make multiple minions. So you can't
we're wrong.
Yeah, he's still just holding on to it.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't even buff his board, Mark Lotus. I think he's also paying respects because the fact that he knows second Psychic Stream is a possibility as well.
He does still have another Violet Teacher in his deck, so he's perhaps looking to pair it there.
And I mean, maybe it's a combination of all of the above. It's the fact that it's weaker against some of the AoE removals that he knows Surrender could have, Dragonfire Potion and the Psychic Screen. It's also the Violet Teacher combo where he has double Mark of the Lotus. He'd rather keep those cheap spells. And I think the thing that we're getting at is that Fr0zen's keeping his options open.
Absolutely.
And that's, a lot of patience. I think almost all of us in this room would have contemplated playing Jade Idol way earlier. Put some pressure on the
I
priest.
probably would have just played it turn 1. So, by way earlier, you mean all the way back, turn 1 of the game. You know what? I got this Jade Idol.
Yeah.
I'm going to cast it.
And people always theory craft about the idea of using Jade Idol that's stolen from the opponent to go infinite on Jade yourself, but that is way too slow for Surrender, as he is simply going to use that for removal. And again, because Surrender is mindful of his life total, has not been shooting Fr0zen's face whatsoever, and he doesn't have Prognivalent in his hand to even set up for any kind of burst. This is getting way out of hand at this point. Fr0zen has gained armor up into the 30s at this point. We kind of talked about after 20, you don't gain that much win percentage, but there is a point where there's actually just no way for Priest to win at that point.
Although I think we're not quite near that point because Fr0zen still has to actually put pressure on Surrender, because Surrender, he has a bunch of cheap spells. He has his Prophet Valen, and he has just a lot of time to just naturally ping the face with his hero powers too. He got his Valen, or rather his Anduin online right away. So he's been able to chip away at the armor total, and yeah, he's kind of hanging out.
Yep, this is a product of not being able to draw enough. He does have a couple of cards like Acolyte and Novice that he's waiting for, but until he gets Lyre the Sun Shard, and other ways to combo with it, it's still looking dicey for Surrender.
Branching paths for Fr0zen can offer him even more armor.
One thing that we haven't established is the magic number. In Control Warrior versus Freeze Mage, at one point, there was a specific number, I don't recall off the top of my head, but it was in the 70s, where Freeze Mage just runs out of damage.
Mark of the Lotus, 2.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that. But Fr0zen also is running into some hand size issues, too.
All right, Lyra.
This on Ultimate Infestation now.
This Lyra draw for Surrender, this is one of the tools in his arsenal that can give him the ability to go beyond whatever threshold Fr0zen can get to if he can chain the right cards to keep generating cheap spells.
Shadowy
He has yet
Fr0zen's
to...
sitting at 63 life, though.
He is.
He's going to need a lot. He doesn't even have the dream of the Radiant Elemental.
Right.
He has to keep getting 0 mana cards off this Lyra for infinite damage.
I got faith.
0 mana cards?
It got 0, technically.
Yeah. I mean, Forbidden Shaping can also summon minions to help in this
Okay, there's a 1-cost card.
Yeah. Why not use Forbidden Shaping to summon the Sorcerer's Apprentice?
shadows grow short.
Sure.
All right. Well,
Is this really happening?
he does not have time to go infinite now. There's a
Right.
riddle.
Yeah, it took a little bit
Potion of
long.
Madness.
Oh my gosh. Wow. This was a time as a resource that Surrender maybe waited a little bit too long. Could definitely squeeze out a little bit more damage.
Well, one of the kind of crazy things about this live return, he got 2 Forbidden Shapings and a free from Amber. Now another Psychic Screen. So those can be big threats that can deal that extra damage to Fr0zen.
He also got, the Psychic Scream, and he actually got So much damage off too.
He missed one hero power at the end there, it looks like.
He is mortal. Yeah, that was 22 damage Surrender did that turn.
That was a lot. That was a big Lyra turn, and he has the Free-from Ember as well as the Forbidden Shaping to generate big minions that maybe might be able to help get enough damage that he can repeatedly smash Fr0zen in the face with to end up doing enough to fight through all this armor.
I
didn't know.
agree.
What I don't know.
You have excellent skills. I see you are a man of culture as well.
What does Paylette even mean?
Palette, isn't it? Palette. I think that's what he said. Said platypus palette.
I don't know.
Yes.
Okay. That was spelled.
It could be Dutch for a marriage proposal.
It could
in which
be.
Case I will confirm.
Shadowy thoughts.
All right, well, we do see the Free-from Ember, and Obsidian statue is pretty interesting. The Alexstrasza, though, 8/8 body here.
Yeah, you want some ferocious attack on the board right now.
The shadows grow
That is not an
short.
easy minion to deal with for Fr0zen. He does have to swipe in the Spellstone as removal pieces.
I believe that is a fully upgraded spellstone, so it does 6 damage.
Yeah. It's gotta be. It's been there for a long time. That Spellstone's been there since the beginning of the game, practically.
And I believe we're seeing Fr0zen trade these off. Yeah, he's doesn't want to get a spreading plague, stopping Alexstrasza from getting the job done here.
These Jays are starting to get pretty mighty as well.
They're getting scared.
But Fr0zen knows about the second Psychic Screen possibility, so has to be mindful of that, although interestingly enough...
There's 3. There's the possibility of 3 because the one came off of Lyra.
You're right.
That one's from Lyra. All the gold spells are from Lyra.
Shadow of Pain was used, so Surrender can't get by very easily.
He can Hero Power, Power Word Tentacles, Hero Power Mind Blast, then hit with 10 for 10 with the
like
Alexstrasza.
Yeah, that works too. You can save Mind Blast for Prophet Balen that way, but the essence was strong.
So, I mean, this thing we're talking about, okay, can Fr0zen get out of range of Surrender? But Surrender, with that Lyra, picked up multiple big threats from outside this game, is connecting with a dragon that was not in his deck for 10. Woo! And now, Fr0zen needs to deal with this 10-14 minion.
He does have the Spellstone and the Swipe, though, still. Even just the Mark of the Lotus buff will be enough with the Spellstone.
It's true.
Oh, so that works perfectly with Violet Teacher. You Violet Teacher, you can put the Branching Path's armor if you want, and then Spellstone and Mark the Lotus for the exact 14 damage cleared onto the Alexstrasza. But then you missed the hero power, which kind of stinks because you really wanted to get those 3 armor. It's a lost opportunity cost.
Yeah, and you know the way that this game is going, Fr0zen has not been putting much pressure on. Surrender has had a lot of time, has generated a lot of extra resources.
Yeah.
And he needs all the armor he can get, not just from his the cards in his deck overall, but just turn by turn. Every turn that he does not hero power is the opportunity cost of missed armor.
Exactly. So I definitely think keeping Branching Paths held back a little bit. Plus, it's another token which can get shuffled in. And man, as Surrender under pressure, every turn he's putting his hands to his temples and trying to focus because it's so much stress trying to balance pressuring your opponent while worrying about Fr0zen's ability to kill you.
Indeed, Anduin. And there are lots of opportunities that Surrender has here to pick apart this board, but he wants to keep the damage going. He needs to try and outpace the... I don't even know what Twisted Bear or whatever that ability is when you click the armor one. It's not quite tank up.
It might as well be at that point.
It's turtle up.
You know, Surrender actually has to be worried about 21 damage right now.
Right.
Fr0zen has Swipe, Branching Paths, and the Valkyrian Hero Power, which is 21 damage.
Deathwing Dragon number 2 was not in the deck, but here it is.
Yeah, how does Fr0zen deal with that now?
It's like, oh, did you just kill my 10-14? How about a 12-12?
Oh my gosh. Fr0zen's gonna just ultimate devastation to the face. He's kind of desperate right now. And he's gonna take a little fatigue damage in the process.
He is. And that is 12 armor on Fr0zen. That is a 12 attack Deathwing.
Yeah, Surrender has chewed through the armor count, but still has a ways away to go. And he's gonna deal with the Violet Teacher. Still looking for Prophet Valen. He's using a lot of his cheap spells.
14 Deathwing. Every point of health gets it further out of range of Fr0zen's ability to take it down. And now Surrender knows every card that Fr0zen has in his hand. He has drawn his deck, so he knows, okay, well, he has access to Spreading Plague. I don't want to play out a bunch of minions here to make it easier for him to absorb hits from Death.
Or does he? Because he has a Psychic Scream to stall and potentially reduce the power of the Jade Idol trait.
Stall? He wants to attack with a dragon. What are you talking about stalling? He's attacking with a 12 power minion.
Yeah, that's fair. Seems pretty good. I like the Deathwing hitting face repeatedly approach. Oh, he wants that damage now. He's not gonna wait. Prophet Valen is a little bit too late to the party. My goodness, Surrender managed to set up a 2-turn lethal here. Obviously, Fr0zen has ways to get out of it. With Spreading Plague, gaining armor. First, his priority, of course, is to make sure he's not taking excessive fatigue damage or damage from the Deathwing, excuse me.
He has the Spreading Plague, which will give him several taunts to get in the way. He could potentially throw in the Ghoul into the Deathwing to get more, but that does mean that Surrender gets another card off of the Acolyte, unless he kills that too.
I guess the nice thing for Fr0zen is he's seen Mind Blast, so Prophet Valen Burst is significantly reduced. Basically, a couple of small cards like the Northshire Cleric and Knobs Engineer is all that exists.
My turn is not.
Fr0zen not going for a taunt with the Spreading Plague immediately. Instead, go with the Scarab, trying to see if he can buy time.
Okay, here, so what Fr0zen's trying to do is just keep himself alive here and try and go for the potential for a counter-lethal. He's setting up the double Jades.
Oh, yeah, and he's going to put Surrender in a position where if he Psychic Scream, he's going to lose his Deathwing. Actually gives Deathwing to the Druid.
Right. Oh, well, Dragonfire Potion, that kills the... that doesn't hurt Deathwing. That does a lot of damage to Fr0zen's board here. Does get the Deathwing through. He can actually bump the Acolyte in, then Dragonfire if he chooses.
Right.
And he can actually kill the 9/9. He can ping the 9/9. Yeah. Ping the 9/9, Dragonfire, ping the 9/9 again.
Play Tar Creeper.
12 to the face with Deathwing. Even heal up with the Priest of the Feast. 3 more from the Priest of the Feast gets through. And he could even trade for the Priest of the Feast for the 10/10.
Oh my goodness, you're right. That is a full clear from Surrender. Not even gonna set up defenses. He's going on the offense, and Fr0zen is starting to sweat. This was an unwinnable position for Surrender, and somehow he's put himself yet again 1 turn away.
Fr0zen tried to just armor up through the damage. He was playing so passively this game, but Surrender with the Lyra, the Free from Amber, and the Forbidden Shaping found giant dragons to push so much damage through that armor. And there's Prophet Valen. But Surrender still needs to deal with his Jade. If he doesn't end the game or kill the Jade, the Jade plus swipe ends the game for Fr0zen.
Right. So if Surrender trades into the 11/11, he sets up an easy swipe removal for Fr0zen. Definitely want a hero power before you do anything. Prophet Valen helps you get to clear on the Scarab as well.
Not all who want
What about the Tar Creeper? Can the Tar Creeper provide a roadblock enough?
The shadows grow short.
He knows every single card. He knows there's the Ghoul, the Swipe, and the Jade Idols left.
This should be enough as a small roadblock, is it not? Because you can't swipe and hero power through.
Yeah.
He's just going to take the trade anyways just to be extra safe.
But there's nothing Fr0zen has to do here. He only has Jade Idols. He can just make larger men. And he's going to have to take a turn off next turn. He makes a 12-12.
There's only Second Scream and Northshire Cleric left for Surrender.
Almost out of cards.
Got
This game has been totally outrageous.
11, 15, plus 8, plus 12.
I think that's it. I think Surrender has it.
Yeah.
He has 12 damage plus what's on the board. He's got, yeah. I think that, is this somehow, after all this, just exact lethal from ping, 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 through all of that craziness, all these dragons, with no cards left in his deck, Surrender finds the lethal damage.
Unbelievable play. Spectacular game and performance from Surrender. That is quite the turnaround. I was not expecting an ending like that.
And clearly you knew with Fr0zen. Fr0zen played that game so passively for so long. He just sat back and tried to stay alive. And Surrender found the tools he needed to make that plan just not work.
The hopes of an entire country lays on the back of Surrender, and he is not disappointing whatsoever. What's going to happen in Game 2? We'll find out right after this.
Tell me more about releases, because that's what I find an interesting subject as a player. I know back in the day, when I was playing, the release was kind of laggy at the beginning, but in Kobolds, it was just super smooth. And it was also simultaneous for Europe and America.
So we spent a lot of time trying to improve the way our service would respond to, big spikes in concurrency. And also, a very legitimate complaint that people had in EU was that EU would launch so much later than all the other regions, right? And so for us, we really prioritized trying to get EU out in a more reasonable time frame. Now, we actually did end up launching EU pretty close to peak, and that was kind of a decision that we were kind of humming and hawing pretty late into the development cycle of Kobolds and Catacombs. But we had made a number of improvements to our service, and at that point we kind of felt like, okay, this is worth the risk, and we think people will be happy with it, And
As a player, it felt like super smooth. And I wanted to ask, how was it from your perspective? Were you guys a bit afraid that it might go wrong?
We were very afraid. Generally speaking, we're afraid every expansion because, obviously we have a great QA staff and we have a great automation team that spend a lot of time doing the best they can to make sure that the game is going to be stable when it launches. But you just can't replicate what it is like when you launch in production and all these people log into your game at the same time.
Yeah.
It is impossible for us to replicate that sort of environment. And so every time we launch something, we're a little worried, but we have a lot of contingency plans. We have a lot of people on our team who are very invested in making sure that things go smoothly, and we spend a lot of hours just making sure things are okay. And so I feel like EU launch did go pretty well, and I think a lot of people were pretty happy with it, so I guess that was a success.
Pull up a chair by the hearth and welcome to Amsterdam. This is the Hearthstone World Championship.
An absolute ridiculous game to begin the last series of day 2 here, as Surrender takes out Fr0zen's in game number 1. And then, and you know what? I'm still a little speechless after that, kid, but that was quite the thrilling game.
It was, and it was back and forth really to the end. You know, Surrender managed to assemble exact lethal damage on that last turn when his only cards left were Psychic Screams. And Fr0zen, you know, was continuing to threaten with those giant Jade Golems, but the way that Surrender identified how he had to win that game was just so impressive.
Yeah, and we go into game number 2. No time to look into the past. Jade Druid immediately re-queued up from Fr0zen. Surrender turns to the Tempo Rogue. This is a matchup that should favor Surrender on paper. In fact, if you look at it, in general, Surrender does have a lot of good matchups. But what starts becoming scary is, you know, what happens if Fr0zen can target any of these decks, particularly from the aggro Druid's perspective. Fr0zen does have this early game Jade. We are playing that apparently on turn 1 of this matchup.
We've changed our mind, at least, you know, it's a different matchup. So, but this matchup is one that I think is very interesting because Fr0zen's Jade Druid deck is one that I played quite a bit with prior to coming out here after it was posted, and I was really impressed by the performance of the Violet Teacher package, specifically against Tempo Rogue, because Tempo Rogue with Vilespine Slayer and such is very good at picking apart any sort of board that's based on a couple of individual big minions. But Fr0zen's ability to go wide with the Violet Teachers can give you a board that can instead pick apart the Rogue's threats, because you just are able to present such a wide board of big things. And speaking of big things, we're going to see a massive Van Cleef coming down to Surrender here. Uses double backstab, coins out his deckhand, and suddenly that's a turn 3 10-10.
That is some nostalgia. If you've been watching the World Championships every year in Hearthstone, the class that's been with a winning lineup has been Rogue, and they've always been playing big Van Cleefs. In 2017, Hearthstone World Championship is no different. Fr0zen's just going to ramp and absorb the damage.
He uses his hero power and attacks. The face he is going to use Spreading Plague to absorb the damage from that Van Cleef overturns. And now, obviously, the attack to face, he's Surrender into this. So I'm curious if they'll decide to play as Keleseth.
And Fr0zen could have also been tracking the number of minions that died too, which means that Quarter Creeper would also be 4 mana and playable.
Right.
Completely different scenario if he just autopiloted and killed off one of these 1-health creatures.
And now Surrender figuring out, okay, well, what do I do against a Spreading Plague here? What do I do, you know, against what Fr0zen rather has pretty much telegraphed he has in his hand. Well, he is now telegraphing what he might have in his hand, which is something to play on 2 mana.
Yeah,
there's 1 2-drop in the deck.
There's 1 2-mana card.
Okay, there it is. Prince Keleseth comes down.
Now Fr0zen has a liberty of being able to remove a minion on the board.
He does. Taking 1 big hit from that Van Cleef so far. Does upgrade his Spellstone. Fr0zen actually has access to Oaken Summons, Swipe, Spellstone next turn. He can Oaken Summons, which will upgrade the Spellstone again. Swipe plus the Spellstone can kill the 10-10.
Wow. Well, Surrender's got that reload.
And if Fr0zen Oaken Summons into a Violet Teacher, he's getting 1/1s for each of those.
Oh, you're right. That is also a really big deal. And the Fandral versus Violet Teacher is such a big deal. Sometimes it makes me wonder, you know, do you want to just guarantee your
Should this deck have
Violet
Fandral in it?
Yeah.
Fandral's pretty good too.
Fandral's an amazing card. But I find Druid playing less and less, you know, choose 1 options as time goes on.
Choose soon.
Surrender going for maximum tempo. Gonna put this Elven Minstrel in his back pocket with the Flame Elemental. And Fr0zen has an opportunity to swing the board.
Malfurion, also a very powerful defensive tool, available for future turns. Could even use it now. Yeah, I think that Malfurion now gives him even more big taunts that get in the way of this board.
The circle of life is over.
Could even get, I don't know that he can afford to get poisonous things here. He does.
I mean, the poisonous actually is not
Yeah,
that bad
no.
given that it's protected.
Right, the fact that there are the 3 taunts in front means that he has the ability to kill multiple large minions.
And remember the double backstab play.
Yeah, there's
with
no
the Bank
backstabs. He
Cleave.
knows that there's no backstabs here.
Wow.
This is really heads-up play from Fr0zen. I mentioned earlier, every time I make poisonous spiders, I feel brilliant.
Yeah.
And this is brilliant from Fr0zen here, recognizing, okay, there's no tools for Surrender to kill these, and now he's going to be able to preserve his swipe and spellstone for future threats, and just off these with the spiders.
Oh, yeah. You always feel so good because it's a risk that you know has a really high reward, to say the least. And Fr0zen picks up the second Violet Teacher, which means at least he knows what his Oaken Summon is going to do. But he's going to prioritize removing and clearing everything. I mean, he's got the double spiders, so that pretty much guarantees that every threat can be neutralized if he wants to. It's all about his greed level at this point.
Well, he does certainly want to respect the threat of Bone Mare next turn. Surrender is going into a 7-mana turn.
I think respecting the Bone Mirror is important. Surrender with a deep sigh. This Van Cleef got a hit in, but was unable to close the game.
And with 2 health left of this this Scarab here, is he can even try to protect the spider. He's going to protect the spider by killing the Minstrel, using the spider here to kill off the Flame Elemental and save that 1 life so there's no possibility of just daggering through. Bone Mare is the draw. I think we're going to see very likely, well, Karen obviously is a pretty strong answer to an opponent who has instant death remaining on board. But the Violet Teacher may get a lot of work done.
Well, Innervate's not exactly the greatest pickup here from Fr0zen.
Although with the Violet Teacher, I mean, I guess he can't possibly get enough minions into play at this point. He's going to have board space issues if he tries to play the second Violet Teacher into Innervate here.
A little bit of moment indecision, just kind of weighing the options. The second Violet Teacher is kind of like a reload. If all these tokens is cleared, you can immediately summon more.
Yeah. All right, that spider getting his teeth sunk into Cairn, and now Bane.
Pay attention, class.
And Fr0zen still has the Spellstone remaining in his hand.
Right. Does end up actually missing one of the 1/1 tokens, but he wants to keep his board space flexible in case he wanted to play, multiple minions if like Aya or something came out. Gauge are more valuable. Big card needs to come out here. Fr0zen, of course, has been burned before by the random generated cards. Doesn't even want to look at what the rogue picked up. He's covering his face. He doesn't want to look. He says, please don't swipe me.
No,
oh my gosh. The stress.
Like not another free from Amber. Don't somehow get one of those here.
There's a lot of Druid cards that could really destroy this board. We're talking about Starfall, Swipe, even like Spreading Plague, Oh, there could be some really disastrous moments.
Oh, Nourish is the draw for Fr0zen. That is effectively a 3-cost Nourish, thanks to the rebate from Fandral.
I'm ready to learn. I am ready to learn.
And these Violet Teachers doing their job.
Yeah, and Fr0zen doing his job too. Being able to get a little bit more mana flexibility.
I do want to point out, once again, this is a game where Surrender played a turn 3 10-10.
Yes.
And Fr0zen is now in a commanding position.
Yes, full clear again. Is he threatening to lethal next turn? Looks like it.
I believe so.
Yeah, so at this point, Surrender doesn't even have like the Leroy Hail Mary. I think Leroy's a 7 attack. And even if he had the Shadow Step, still not be enough. And that is it. Fr0zen is going to take an unfavorable match and swing it to the back to tie the series.
Yeah. These two games have just been remarkable. I can't wait for the rest of the match.
Man, this series is stressful, Kibler, for us. I can't even imagine what the players are going through. And while we have a break and an opportunity to talk about something else too, we're having a lot of fun here on the Championship Tour and all the tour stops happening in 2018. One of the things we mentioned yesterday is the Hearthstone Global Games. It's coming back with 48 countries and a new improved format to rework the Swiss group stage. Fr0zen is waiting by to actually chat a little bit about it.
Thanks a lot, Dan. I'm here with the hometown heroes, I would say, the local Team Netherlands HCG team from the previous year. So I'm joined by Theo, Mitsuhide, Tyler, and Tice. Welcome. I hope you're enjoying the event. But how was HCG this past year for you, Tyler? Did you enjoy it? Did you enjoy the team format style?
I mean, it was cool. It's even more cool because you play with a super good team. So yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, playing with a super good team actually helps quite a lot, I imagine. And Tice, what did you think of the overall experience in probably, maybe getting to know some of the players a little bit better, playing with, your countrymen, basically?
Yeah, I think it is a good aspect because I think team formats are already really cool, but there is so much more rivalry between countries, between persons. You face so much more. So yeah, I've definitely really enjoyed just, the more fights, the Europe against NAs, the Europe against Europe, the fights against each other.
I like it. Tice already starting to call out other countries, and it's not even officially started yet, so that's awesome. And Mitsu, how have you been enjoying this event? How are you enjoying Worlds?
I think it's really awesome. The venue is great. There's a lot of side activities. Everyone's just together watching games and talking it over, so yeah, pretty epic.
Yeah, it's definitely awesome. And finally, Theo, who do you think is going to win out of this current match?
Out of this current match, yeah, I think it's always difficult to tell in Hearthstone. Like, we've seen reverse sweep, so I think it's too hard to call right now.
You need to pick someone.
That's kind of...
Okay, I'm going to pick Surrender then, who's going to win, mainly because he's my pick for the whole tournament. But thanks a lot, guys. Give a round of applause for the local hometown heroes for Hearthstone Global Games. It was a pleasure. And we'll go back to you guys at the desk.
Thanks a lot, Fr0zen, and checking back into the series. Looks like we're getting ready for game number 3 here. It's best of 5. Remember, winner gets a spot in the quarterfinals. Not only they double up, but of course they get to play. They get to keep playing versus the danger of not even advancing out of groups.
Yeah, and both these players are considered the favorites by many. You heard Fr0zen talking about how Surrender was his choice for packs. Fr0zen was my choice. And also a player who many of the other competitors predicted would do very well after seeing the decks.
All right, well, Fr0zen's going to turn to his Rizaka's Priest, excuse me, as he has the Shadow Reaper Anduin and Kazaka's in the opening hand. Surrender has, the Tempo Rogue, which has been pegged as the underdog in this matchup, but we've seen some steals. I feel like a lot of the Rogue, when they're playing the long game, has a lot more game than a lot of people think that they do traditionally.
Yeah, one of the big cards that we've seen in this matchup throughout the weekend has really been Elven Minstrel. The players who have included multiple copies of Elven Minstrel in their deck have tended to run out of gas just less. And we've seen, for instance, Shadow Step Elven Minstrel rather than Shadow Step Keleseth, specifically against the priests, to try to accumulate enough resources and find the key minions that allow you to burst them down once you get your aggression going. Speaking of burst, Leroy Shadow Step in the opening hand for Surrender, not really what you're looking for. Quarter Creeper number 2, those are pretty powerful to have big swing turns if you do get them sufficiently discounted. But the Priest from Fr0zen, not really one that's playing a lot of early game minions.
Okay, So that's kind of what we're talking about, the Elven Minstrel being able to come into the hand, but Surrender doesn't have easy combos, nor does he have real substantial plays in the early game. That gives Priest so much time to find what it wants to do to even get the lead on the board.
Surrender is just considering playing a 2-2 Van Cleef, I think. And part of that has to do certainly with wanting to just get some pressure going. Part of it, you know, the composition of hand, having double Corridor Creeper, he needs something to die. And if this doesn't die, maybe he Shadow Steps it and plays the Minstrel next turn.
Yeah, this is like the moment where you're playing against the Innkeeper tutorial and they play Raid Leader on 3, and you're like, come on, that never happens. This is happening on the biggest stage. A tempo Van Cleef as a 2-2. That's pathetic.
It's usually like a misclick when this happens. It's like, did you mean to play that? Did you have a different minion? No, he did this on purpose. And Fr0zen sniffs out, okay, if he did this on purpose, that means something. And he decides to kill it, which does prevent the Shadow Step into Minstrel. And now Surrender.
It makes, and right now Surrender just picks up a second Shadow Step. It's terrible.
Is he gonna Minstrel just Shadow Step it, or just Minstrel? All right, these are some unusual plays from Surrender here, but frankly, his hand is pretty terrible if he doesn't get minions killed, doesn't get the discounts going for those Corridor Creepers.
And Fr0zen's okay with letting him Shadow Step it, because if the long game plan happens for Surrender, he has the Raza and the Anduin, like you mentioned, so it's. Does he even worry about, you know, the fact that his opponent's going to draw a lot of cards if he has removal for all?
And now this early game is a bit better for Surrender now that he's able to Shadow Step this Minstrel. He could decide to play a Corridor Creeper here, just to have a 5/5 to contest the Twilight Drake here, or to dig deeper with the Minstrel, likely find some cheap spells, as he has most of his expensive minions in his hand, so Minstrel would definitely find something he could play.
It's true, it would follow the curve a little bit better, but when you look at Corridor Creeper for 5, that's you know, that's actually an average play. You're looking for the cheaper Corridor Creepers for the bigger swings. However, the later the game goes, the more likely they have to remove it.
Right, and he finds, oh my god, he actually found the two other expensive cards in his deck. He does have Bone Mares. He can hit Bone Mare in this case, but
it's true. Oh man,
when you're just
like
looking for cheap plays. Keleseth, okay, and Firefly, got him. we got the 1-drop. We can play it. Oh dear, and now he's just used the Minstrel repeatedly. Now he has no buffs on this full hand of cards he picked up off the Minstrel. So even though he does have this Keleseth, it's a little bit rougher. He does have a Cairn. Cairn is still pretty powerful against Priest, though with Raza already on the board, Fr0zen does have the ability to contest it, at least the front half immediately. And we just need 1 damage to kill Bane as well.
I mean, these are the moments you live for as a rogue player. You're trying to make a comeback with a lot of the offer cards.
And this may look strange to a lot of people, the attack into Raza here from Surrender, but this is so that Fr0zen cannot attack and then heal and leave Raza at 2 health. If Fr0zen chooses to heal, then attack into Cairn, he will still have 1 health after the damage resolves, which means Surrender can dagger it down.
Yeah, next level. And Surrender, of course, wants to utilize his health as a resource because, it matters so much more about the board state, the foreseeable future.
Like to play with fire?
Dude, Fr0zen looked like he just went base with both these minions.
I believe he did. I believe he's
he
saying,
doesn't
okay.
even care.
I mean, he has Raza. He has Anduin in his hand. Surrender's down to 15. He has put essentially 0 pressure on Fr0zen because he's had no real minions he could play. And yeah, he's not going to spend that much damage attacking into Cairn. He is just going to get the damage into Surrender's face.
Patches will come out. Get an easy trade. Corridor Creepers are getting cheap too. The big swing, Surrender is able to get double Corridor Creeper, but Fr0zen has Shadow Reaper Anduin ready.
He's got all the tools he needs here. Anduin to blow open the Creepers. as well as start getting damage to Surrender's face. He doesn't need to do that much damage. He's already got him down to 10.
Yeah, this is game over. And, you know, Fr0zen had pretty much the nuts, and Surrender had a pretty awkward, slow opening. And the Rogue deck can be susceptible to that sometimes because they play a lot of expensive cards. Quarter Creeper can get reduced, but if you don't draw those cheap early minions, you're relegated to this, and that is going to be game 3 to Fr0zen.
I think every game so far this matchup has been one that is not going along the lines you generally expect.
No,
you usually don't see Priest just beating up the Rogue, having all the minions while the Rogue is just forced to try and react and do very, very little. And
right. It looked like it was a Tempo Priest versus a Control Rogue at that point, right?
He just had 2 Twilight Drakes. Are you just playing Dragon Priest? Are you even Raza Highlander? No, I don't know.
Well, I mean, he's got a lot of those dragons in there, but Fr0zen's feeling pretty good going to Warlock, a deck that people have been banning, and we haven't seen too much Warlock, but we will see it coming up as a lot of the fans and activities around the tavern here at the Bansberg Village in the Amsterdam, Netherlands. A lot of people are hanging out, meeting their favorite players, talking to their favorite streamers, laughing with Ben Brode, and of course cheering on their teammates, friends, family, or maybe just a player that they met and learned recently. Surrender from Korea up against Fr0zen from America. Only one player can get their ticket to top 8 today. But if they lose, they still have the comfort in knowing that they'll play tomorrow in the decider match.
And we'll be seeing Warlock here from Fr0zen. He is playing Cube Warlock. This is the most common build of Warlock, I believe, that we saw brought by competitors into this tournament, but not a deck we've seen actually played very much because it has almost universally been banned.
Beardhide Hydra, of course, a fantastic card against a lot of the slow decks. Against Warlock, though, I've seen it actually do a lot more harm than good if Warlock has, you know, any amount of their tools to really deal with early on. You know, getting a Void Lord out early with the Lackey seems to be the ultimate poison for that card.
It certainly is painful against Defile, too.
That's true, because it can overkill.
Right.
So even if it's at 0, it can go -1, -2, and you're taking 3 per.
Does it work that way?
It does.
I didn't even know that.
So if you say you have, you know, 5 minions that you're killing with a Defile, that's 15 damage on the Bittertide Hydra, even if it goes in the negative.
And Fr0zen with an excellent opening himself. The Librarian finds him a Defile. Also has a Doomsayer in his hand.
Yeah, Doomsayer is working away in a couple builds where, you know, for example, Muzzy doesn't even have Doom Guards in the list, which we did a double take. You know, and it gives a lot of good options against these tempo-oriented decks. You clear the board, play Doomsayer, or you Doomsayer before they tempo the board, and then it improves your position dramatically.
Prince Taladrim becomes a 3/3 copy of any minion. Actually is kind of interesting if Surrender plays a Druid of the Swarm next turn. He can make himself a 3/3 taunt.
Yeah, a lot of times actually what I really like using Taladrim as is Patches clone.
Yeah.
They summon Patches and then you summon a 3/3 version and you kill their captain.
I get one too.
Yeah. Ends up being pretty sick. And what a world we live in where, you know, all the princes have been played competitively in the Knights of the Frozen expansion when we first underestimated significantly. Surrender debating if he wants to squeeze out this extra tempo or save the coin for a big Hydra play later on.
I don't really see a Mark of the Lotus being plays looking to do that turn. But
I gotta say, Doomsayer seems pretty appetizing.
It's not going to get much better at least. Your opponent is going to have more minions, potentially clear your board with Mark of the Lotus buff rather than having to invest in actual resource like Savage Roar. I think Fr0zen here is debating: do I want to play my Visitor's Eviction? Do I want to give you a if you kill my Doomsayer, well, at least I have this on board. But I believe, well,
like holding on to the Mishra's Mixture has a lot of value with Defile. It helps really stack, and it also really messes up your opponent's math too when they're calculating damage, which is often the hardest part of playing an aggro deck. Really trying to weigh like, okay, how much damage can I put into this versus treating the minion.
It also pairs very well with Prince Taladrim this turn.
Oh yeah, you're right.
You can get a 3/3 that will restore life to him.
That's true too.
So this is a pretty powerful tempo turn, Fr0zen here actually, that also can help restore some of that lost life. The South Sea captain picked up for surrender, so he can find himself patches.
Even allows him to play quarter creeper if he takes a double minion trade.
Yeah.
Also has the option of just, dropping that fat 8/8 on the board. Gotta say though, if I'm Fr0zen, I'm sitting back pretty easy. I had the Galactic Crawler, I have my Blood Reaver Gul'dan, so I've got my late game all set. So it's all about if I can survive long enough to drop Voidlord into Blood Reaver Gul'dan.
Oh, and the Mark of the Lotus to try and prevent the trade here is going to make this crawler even more painful.
Yeah.
The one card Fr0zen kept in his mulligan will eat the South Sea captain and set up 6 power that threatens to kill the quarter creeper as well. Oh, that is still a big Hydra.
No, it's still very much a huge threat at this point. Surrender has double Savage Roar. I mean, it's not going to do the crazy amount of Savage Roar we're used to, but it's still 4 damage each if one minion sticks on the board.
Fr0zen does have double Defile. Is there any way to set up anything particularly crazy here? I don't think so. He can double attack into the Hydra, Defile, which does a lot of damage to surrendering, at least kills the Hydra, but still leaves the 6/6 in play.
Yeah, it's also kind of compromised by the fact that Mistress heals
right.
Your opponent as well. No fear, because he's going to be able to trade it and get 4 health. Surrender has 16 damage, it looks like, right now.
There is...
Although, with the Lackey being out on the board, Fr0zen has double Voidlord, so he only could pick up Doomguard.
Right.
There's a chance that he even draws Doomguard.
He could draw Doomguard.
Or assuming Surrender's not trading into it. And that would mean that's a huge whiff, which could turn it can actually turn the situation upside down here.
Absolutely can.
Oh man, if you were scared about drawing patches before, drawing the Doomguard here would be devastating for Fr0zen. It almost feels like a 1-game guaranteed.
That's not Doomguard. Ooh, and it's actually Dark.
Yeah. So, by killing the Lackey, you can suicide your Doomguard into the Bittertide Hydra. That's a 1, 2, 3. And that's a Defile.
Yeah.
And that's it's a pretty clean kill. This works as well. Is this actually squeezing a little bit more damage? I think so.
There's 3 triggers from the Defile.
Right. Well, 4.
Right, yeah. I wonder if Fr0zen's just debating playing the second Doom.
Oh,
just
man.
Getting him.
Because you discard 2 out of the 3 cards you want. Voidlord is usually good enough to close it anyways. And you can put pressure to win the game. One thing for sure is I want to kill this Bittertide Hydra.
Oh yeah,
so I'd rather do that now.
Yeah. Let's not rope out before
He's
that
making
Hydra
it dramatic
dies.
for the fans.
Oh god. There's still a Bittertide Hydra in play. Make it stop.
I don't know. It's like
oh, but living mana for surrender.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Fr0zen doesn't have he doesn't have an easy Defile proc here. Wait, did we call this one too early?
He needs Immortal Coil, perhaps. Hellfire. Uh-oh.
Well, the Spellstone will heal him. I believe that Spellstone, did it get upgraded?
The Spellstone is not upgraded. He just drew it up life tap. Well, last turn, rather.
Whoa, wait a second. So if he uses this, he goes up to 13 life, but there's 12 on the board, and that frees him up to hero power.
It does.
So Fr0zen has to tap. Or he has to Doomguard and then Dark Pact it?
I wonder if...
He has to hope he doesn't discard Dark Pact.
He could
faceless.
He could faceless and then Dark Pact the copy of the Mana Treant, which ramps him for a mana.
Wow,
That's what he's gonna do. I love it. Whoa. Well, the thing is, he has no Void Lords that have died yet, though. So he's only getting the.
You're right.
Mark of the Lotus, though, for exact lethal off the top for Surrender. That game looked like Fr0zen dominance. Look at the look in his face as Surrender attacks for lethal.
Wow. That game and series was packed for Fr0zen.
Both of these players, the reactions to these games are nuts.
It's the longest series we've had all day. And the most intense. The first 2 games, absolutely, nail biter. And now we go into game number 5 with another stolen game, just back and forth. The ebb and flow of this match has been unpredictable, and I don't know what's gonna happen. I was first saying, the Warlock's got this. Easy matchup.
It sure looked like it for a while.
And now Fr0zen has 2 reasons to win.
Yeah, I'm kind of just awestruck here from these games. They really have my heart just pounding. Like, is this really happening?
Yeah, it looks like a lot of Korean fans, even Korean memes coming out there. Steal a Korean streamer. Some, a lot of support from the community coming out here. And Surrender said it himself. Every year has had 2 Korean representatives, and this year he is the only one. So he's trying to do it for the entire country.
Well, Prince Kellis is a good start for this game 5 of this match to advance to the quarterfinals.
All right, Fr0zen has the Doomsayer, Defile Hellfire. That's a pretty good amount of removal. And Surrender has the Prince Kellis. What happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object? We're about to find out.
We found out, in the previous 4 games. Because that's really what this match has felt like.
Game 3 was kind of a wash. It was a complete stop. But
sure.
Games 1, 2, and 4 certainly lived up to the hype, and that is South Sea Captain to follow up.
Oh
my God. But wait,
is it going to happen again?
There is a Doomsayer. They stall. But yes, this is exactly what Surrender was looking for. Fr0zen, of course, shaking his head. He knows it's going to be an uphill battle. So the Doomsayer stops the South Sea Captain from immediately pressuring and gives Fr0zen some breathing room.
That it does.
That just is only, in quotation marks, a 4-4.
And it does give him another window that he could potentially just draw the patches.
Right. Oh my gosh, man. Wow. You're making me sweat, Gilbert.
All right, well, 3 damage, or 2 damage. Surrender debating whether he wants to hold on to this dagger or go to the phase.
Yeah, next turn he could use up his mana pretty efficiently.
I love Surrender's just expressions as he plays. Just such intensity, and then just little whimsical smiles and faces and everything. It's fantastic.
If you open up your smartphone and type the emojis button and you just look across all of them, I'm pretty sure we've experienced all shapes and forms of them in this series alone. Fr0zen plays a tempo towel to ramp because he recognizes he needs to do something. Here's the thing, Fr0zen has the teched in Tainted Zealot, by the way. That is something we don't see very often. And that is a huge card in this matchup with Defile.
And right now, Zealot Defile can actually clear this.
Or do you even get greedier? You do have the ability to coin out the Cabal Lackey.
Though Fr0zen is playing the cube version of this deck, so he doesn't have the guarantee of Void Lord if his Lackey dies. That's something that some players who are playing the full control version can rely upon.
Honestly, the Doom card isn't too bad either.
It's true.
Because you're able to remove most of the threats, but the problem is most 5-mana minions won't be killable by Doomguard anymore. The Cobalt Scalebane is a 7/7. Good luck with that.
Yeah, that's got to be something that is on Fr0zen's mind here. Can he afford to take more damage and then set up the Tainted Zealot plus Defile on a future turn to kill more minions? And if he were to, yeah, he's going to go for it.
Okay. Doesn't want to take the risk. Doesn't want to take the damage. Except Surrender's got quite the powerful turn coming out with Corridor Creeper.
And Usher of Souls even.
Get in line.
That Doomguard pickup is a 5/6, just continues the threat here.
Yes.
Doesn't die to a Doomguard. The Swashbuckler is paying off here.
It's another card. I mean, if Fr0zen got really greedy with the Possessed Lackey here, he had that opportunity to make a bigger Defile play, but the punish from Vile Spine, or even just big Scalebane that he can't clear, is even more severe.
Yes. Oh yes.
Another Defile comes into the hand. That might be useful later on.
Oh, Elven Minstrel helps Surrender reload.
Right. So right now we're on the prepare the way for Bone Mirror play. It is so quiet in this room right now. Everyone is waiting in anticipation to find out what happens in this best of 5. The winner doubles up their money and goes to top 8. Loser plays tomorrow with the threat of elimination.
There's also packs in the line.
There's also packs on the line. Millions.
My packs
of
are on the line here, Fr0zen.
It's basically you versus Raven at this point, right? Why didn't we send you guys on the stage? Let these guys take a break.
I'd rather Fr0zen plays for my packs than I do. I mean, let's be realistic. But if it's me playing as Raven, I'll take it.
Surrender is passing. He's afraid of the threat of the Doomguards. Actually, he's reconsidering.
Wants the tempo. Another big minion on the board.
Hellfire and Defile clears all of this.
It's a Doomguard. It is not a Void Lord.
Looking for cube Defile plays, but I don't see it.
Nothing is quite big enough to bump in and then Defile to death.
I mean, when Surrender thinks that long about playing Elven Minstrel for the board tempo, Fr0zen knows what's coming next.
I wonder if...
Is he willing to give up his board here?
Well, he will still have. He still has this Doomguard, but the Doomguard will die to the dagger.
Yes. Effectively give it up. And he's one turn away from the Void Lord.
Deckhand.
He's so close. Deckhand is 5, 6. Shadow Step is 8 or 9? 9 damage. Because the captain buffs it twice, right?
Yep. And he can Captain Deckhand this turn, Shadow Step the Deckhand, which gives him Deckhand Bone Mare next turn.
You're right. And maximizes his damage. And Fr0zen is on 7 mana with the coin. Surrender knows that if the Void Lord comes out, that could be it. That would be him locked out of this game. Locked out of top 8 for today.
Surrender
all
the numbers here.
He's calculating like what other cards I have to account for.
Playing the Bone Mare.
I was not expecting this. He's calculating the possibility of dealing with this.
What do you ask of me?
Fr0zen is not going to tap. He's going to force Surrender to have it.
And Surrender has it. Deckhand to the face. And it will be the South Korean player, Surrender, who advances to the top 8.
Immaculate series. And well played all around. The crowd is loving it. And I agree with that side. Congratulations to Surrender. Korea is once again represented in the top 8.
That was just such a crazy back and forth series. Almost every game